Now we are transitioning from simply describing data to evaluating how much confidence researchers can place in their conclusions. Understanding the shape of the distribution of scores is important because many statistical methods rely on assumptions about how values are distributed. If those assumptions are seriously violated, conclusions may become less accurate. Throughout social science research, variables such as depression scores, income, social media followers, arrests, and educational achievement often display different patterns. Visual inspection through histograms and frequency distributions gives researchers an early opportunity to identify unusual features before conducting more advanced analyses. The chapter emphasizes that data are not merely collections of numbers, their shapes tell stories about social processes and variation across individuals. A population distribution would include every score for every college student in the population of interest. Because researchers rarely have access to an entire population, they rely on samples to estimate what the larger group is like. Thus, a sample distribution refers to values actually observed among participants who completed a survey or study. For example, if researchers collect depression scores from 100 college students, those scores form a sample distribution. Researchers ask whether observed findings are likely to reflect genuine population patterns or random fluctuations associated with sample selection. Understanding the relationship between samples and populations is therefore essential for interpreting survey findings, public opinion data, educational research, and sociological investigations. The concept of a sampling distribution is one of the most important ideas introduced in Chapter 3. Although the phrase sounds similar to sample distribution, it represents something entirely different. Instead of graphing individual observations, researchers imagine repeating the same study many times with different random samples. Suppose 100 researchers each survey 100 students and calculate the average depression score. Every sample will likely produce a slightly different mean because different students were selected. If those 100 means are collected and displayed in a histogram, the resulting graph is called a sampling distribution of the mean. Sampling distributions help researchers understand how much variation to expect among sample statistics. This information becomes critical when deciding whether findings are likely due to chance or reflect genuine population characteristics. Without the concept of sampling distributions, it would be difficult to evaluate the reliability of sample estimates. Researchers use these distributions to calculate standard errors, confidence intervals, and hypothesis tests. This idea serves as a bridge between descriptive statistics and inferential statistics and provides a foundation for understanding later analytical methods used throughout the course. Researchers examine distribution shapes because they reveal important properties of data and help guide appropriate analytical choices. The three especially common forms are normal distributions, positively skewed distributions, and negatively skewed distributions. In a normal distribution, observations cluster near the center, producing the familiar bell shape. Positively skewed distributions occur when most observations fall below the average, but a small number of high values create a long right-hand tail. Examples often include income, wealth, social media followers, and online content views. Negatively skewed distributions occur when most observations lie near the high end of a scale and a smaller number of low values create a left-hand tail. Distribution shape affects the location of summary statistics and influences assumptions used by many statistical procedures. Histograms provide a visual tool that allows researchers to detect skewness, clustering, unusual outliers, and other features before conducting advanced analyses. In sociological studies, the shape of a variable may also provide meaningful substantive insights. For example, highly skewed distributions of wealth reflect broader social inequalities rather than measurement errors. Understanding shape improves interpretation, supports better research decisions, and prepares students for concepts involving probability and statistical inference later in the chapter. Among all possible distribution shapes, The normal distribution occupies a special role in statistics. Also known as the Gaussian distribution, it is characterized by symmetry, a bell-shaped appearance, and alignment of the mean, median, and mode. Many naturally occurring variables approximate this pattern, making it a useful model for statistical reasoning. Most observations gather near the center, while extremely high and low values become progressively less common. Because the normal distribution follows predictable mathematical properties, researchers can estimate how frequently observations appear at different distances from the mean. Imagine you take a depression screening and receive a score of 20. Without context, the number doesn't mean much. But once you know the average score is 15 with a standard deviation of 5, you can place your score into context. Your score is above average, but it is not extremely unusual. Roughly 5 out of every 6 students would be expected to score at or below 20%. If instead your score were 30, you would be far above what is typical in this population, suggesting that additional evaluation might be appropriate. The important thing here is that numbers by themselves have very little meaning. Statistics gives numbers context. The real purpose of a standard deviation isn't to do math. It's to answer a simple question. Compared to everyone else, is this value ordinary or unusual? This predictability makes the bell curve especially valuable for probability and inference. Even when raw data are not perfectly normal, statistical methods often rely on the mathematics associated with normal distributions. Social science variables frequently depart from bell-shaped patterns. Variables such as income or social media followers often remain strongly skewed because social processes generate unequal outcomes. Researchers use the normal curve not because every variable is perfectly bell-shaped, but because it provides a powerful framework for understanding variability, probability, and inference across many types of data. One reason statisticians value the normal distribution is its highly predictable relationship to standard deviation. The famous empirical rule associated with bell-shaped distributions is that approximately 68% of observations fall within one standard deviation of the mean. Roughly 95% fall within 2 standard deviations, and approximately 99.7% fall within 3 standard deviations. These percentages allow researchers to evaluate how unusual or common a particular score may be. If a student's depression score, for instance, falls 3 standard deviations above the average, that observation would be considered relatively rare compared with most scores in the sample. It would be something significant to look at. Standard deviation, therefore, serves as a measure of spread, indicating how tightly or loosely observations cluster around the mean. Combined with the mean, standard deviation provides a concise description of a distribution's central tendency and variability. In practical applications, these concepts help researchers identify outliers, compare variables, and assess the degree of variation within groups. Many inferential procedures, including confidence intervals and hypothesis tests, rely directly or indirectly on standard deviation and related measures. Understanding the relationship between standard deviations and the normal curve provides students with a foundation for interpreting statistical results and evaluating claims based on sample data. Although visual inspection of graphs remains important, statisticians also use numerical measures to summarize distribution shapes. Here, we review 4 key concepts: mean, standard deviation, skewness, and kurtosis. The mean identifies the center of a distribution and provides a measure of typical values. Standard deviation describes the degree of spread around that center. Skewness indicates whether a distribution leans toward higher or lower values, helping researchers detect asymmetry. Positive skewness reflects a long right tail, while negative skewness reflects a long left tail. Lastly, kurtosis measures the thickness of tails and the degree of peakedness relative to a normal distribution. Together, these statistics provide a concise numerical description of the structure of a data set. Researchers use these measures to compare variables, evaluate distributional assumptions, and identify unusual patterns. While introductory analyses often begin with histograms because they are easy to interpret visually, numerical measures become especially useful when comparing many variables simultaneously. In social science research, the ability to summarize shape quantitatively supports reproducibility and facilitates communication among researchers. Understanding these descriptions also prepares students for more advanced analyses involving statistical modeling and hypothesis testing. Effective researchers use both approaches to gain a comprehensive understanding of the data they analyze. The central limit theorem is one of the most remarkable discoveries in statistics. The theorem states that as researchers repeatedly draw samples and calculate sample means, the distribution of those means approaches a normal distribution under appropriate conditions. This occurs even when the original data themselves are not normally distributed. The theorem is powerful because it allows statisticians to use the mathematics of the normal distribution in a wide variety of situations. Imagine sampling students repeatedly and calculating average depression scores for each sample. Although the raw depression scores might be skewed, the distribution of the sample means gradually becomes bell-shaped as sampling continues. That is amazing. This predictable outcome provides the foundation for confidence intervals, significance testing, and many inferential methods. The word central refers to the mean, limit refers to a value approached as a process continues, and theorem indicates a mathematically demonstrated principle. Together, these ideas explain why repeated sampling generates stable and predictable patterns. Without the central limit theorem, researchers would have far fewer tools for making population inferences from sample data. The theorem serves as a cornerstone of modern statistical reasoning and explains why sample-based research remains such a powerful method for learning about large populations. The law of large numbers complements the central limit theorem by explaining why larger samples generally produce more accurate estimates of population characteristics. According to this principle, as sample size increases, the sample mean tends to move closer to the true population mean. Larger samples cannot eliminate all sources of error, but they reduce the influence of random fluctuations that occur in small studies. This concept helps explain why researchers often emphasize obtaining adequate sample sizes. A survey of 1,000 participants is usually more reliable than a survey of 50 participants because the larger sample is more likely to reflect the diversity and characteristics of the population. The principle is widely applied across social science, political polling, market research, epidemiology, and experimental studies. The major lesson of this lecture is that understanding distributions is essential for making valid statistical inferences. Together, we reviewed the empirical rule for standard deviations, the central limit theorem, and the law of large numbers. Together, these concepts explain how researchers can responsibly draw conclusions about large populations from relatively small samples. These ideas establish the conceptual foundation for future analyses involving relationships among variables. The statistical framework developed in this lecture allows future investigations to proceed with greater confidence, rigor, and awareness of the limits and strengths of sample-based research.